Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the STEAM Forward podcast. As always, I'm your host, Savannah, and today we're going to dive into some more history.
STEAM Forward podcast.
This week, myself and a few colleagues of mine, we got the opportunity to attend the CDF Children's Defense Fund Freedom School training in Knoxville, Tennessee. And why I mention that, I believe it gives us the opportunity to give even more history, even more background to this idea of freedom schools. A lot of people don't know what a freedom school is. A lot of people don't know how they came about. And so it's just another piece of African American history that I think we all should find important. Okay, and as always, I have my trusty tool, Avatar Buddy, who just gives us more background information and who just knows how to conceptualize things better than myself. So let's get started into freedom schools, the origins and early history. Civil rights movement beginnings. It started when Jim Crow laws still existed during the mid-20th century. African Americans in southern United States faced systemic segregation and discrimination enforced by Jim Crow laws. In this separation, this created a huge educational inequality. African American children were provided with vastly inferior educational opportunities compared to their white counterparts. So, Mississippi Freedom School. In 1964, an initiative freedom schools were a key component of the 1964 Mississippi Freedom School Summer, a campaign organized by the Council of Federated Organizations, COFO, an umbrella organization including the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Congress of Racial Equality, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and of course, as well as the NAACP. And the purpose of these freedom schools were established to provide African American students with an education that combated the inferior schooling that they received due to segregation and to empower them with knowledge about civil rights and social justice. The establishment of freedom schools. So the creation, the inception. Northern college students, teachers, and local activists volunteered to teach in these freedom schools. Many were white students from northern colleges who traveled to Mississippi to support this movement. The curriculum included traditional subjects such as reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also focused heavily on Black history and the philosophy of the civil rights movement, leadership skills, and the importance of voting rights. Legacy and impact. Empowerment through education. Freedom schools encourage critical thinking and questioning of the status quo, empowering students to understand and challenge the societal structures that upheld racial inequality. The schools were a radical departure from the rote memorization and authoritarian teaching styles of the segregated public schools. They fostered a more interactive form of learning. So there was also a lot of civil rights influence, whether it was political or social impact. Freedom schools played a crucial role in the voter registration drives of Freedom Summer, educating students about their rights and the importance of voting and often involving them in activism and community or organizing. Beyond education, freedom schools serve as a community center for the civil rights movement, hosting meetings and discussions about civil rights strategies and goals. So I thought that that part of history was important to understand why they were created. And so now we're going to move into post-developments after 1964. So there are long-term influences of freedom schools. Many students and teachers from the original freedom schools continued their involvement in civil rights activism, carrying the lessons and experiences from Freedom Summer into ongoing struggles of equality. The philosophy and methods that freedom schools influenced later educational reforms and programs aimed at empowering marginalized communities through education. And so that brings us to this training that I'm at there was the creation of the Children's Defense Fund. So in 1992, the Children's Defense Fund founder and civil rights activist Marian Wright Edelman reintroduced the concept of freedom schools. These schools operated across the United States, providing awareness and social action. They continue the legacy of the original freedom schools by fostering a love of learning and commitment to social justice among young people. Freedom schools have left a lasting legacy in promoting cultural pride, historical awareness, and the importance of education as a tool of empowerment. The principles of freedom school, community involvement, cultural relevance, and social justice remain relevant in contemporary educational practices aimed at addressing educational inequities and fostering inclusive learning environments. So in conclusion of freedom schools were a vital part of the civil rights movement, providing African American students with an education that went beyond the basics of including lessons in history, civil rights, and empowerment. The legacy of Freedom School continue today, inspiring modern educational initiatives that seek and empower marginalized communities through knowledge and activism. And freedom schools are all over the country, so you can go on the website for more information. It's known as freedomschoolpartners.org. We'll also put it in the description. And you can apply to see if there's any locations around you that host freedom schools. Remember, there's summer camp, but they're also after-school programs. And you would be applying to be a servant leader intern, and that's also known as an SLI. And maybe you too will get the opportunity to go to a training and know more about Black history, about literacy, empowerment, and social justice. And as always, we like to end the podcast with the word of the day. And the word I choose today is determination. I think Marian Wright Edelman is a great example of a determined person that no matter the trials, no matter the tribulations, no matter how horrible the circumstances may be, because I can't imagine living in the 60s during Jim Crow, that with determination, with grit, with tenacity, that we can make a change and create something amazing that always pushes forth positive efforts for people of color. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something new, and see you next week.
And as always, a special thanks to our sponsors, the Children's Trust and Trinity Church. And don't forget that there are 3 ways in which you can listen or watch this podcast. If you'd like to listen, follow us on Apple or Spotify. If you'd like to watch, follow us on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and click that bell for post notifications.
Steam Forward Podcast.